While people may be wired differently, that wiring largely comes from the composition of the brain and each lobe's cortexes. As a teenager, many of the bad decisions you made, like dating the school's jerk, could probably be blamed on the frontal lobe, the part of the brain that's responsible for decision making. For most people, the frontal lobe isn't fully developed until a person reaches their 20s, so perhaps we can be forgiven for some of the mistakes made in our youth. But while the frontal lobe plays a key role in our lives, it isn't responsible for creativity. In fact, there isn't a single area of the brain that is responsible for generating groundbreaking ideas or novel approaches to a problem. There's no genius part of the brain, because it turns out that the most complex organ in our body happens to be, well, complex. As stated earlier, there's no specific network or lobe of the brain that is responsible for being creative. Nonetheless, our brains are able to transform the jangling discords of our networks into a beautiful symphony of functionality that aids creativity and problem solving. Knowing the brain's network interacts in this way can clue us into how we can foster creative thinking. Let's look at another example to explain this. When I wrote my first article for my personal development blog, I would reward myself with a walk to my local park whenever I wrote 500 words. However, I would walk the streets every other day and not be present enough to notice anything. But when I was struggling to find an ending to my article, I changed this. Instead of zoning out and patting myself on the back for a job well done, I tried to kick-start my SN by paying more attention during my walk. This time, I counted how many dogs were in the park and how the security officer on duty attended to people with a stern frown below her large nose. I noticed boys selling weed at the corner close to the park, and I overheard a married couple fighting over what they wanted for dinner that night. Now, noticing the world around me, my SN was hard at work. When the CEN took over, I felt the frustration that came with being attended to by a stern-faced potato. I questioned my disgust at the recreational usage of drugs, and I truly understood the wife's passionate argument for why she wanted Taco Bell for dinner. Then the DMN helped me put all of this into perspective, and before I knew it, a genius ending to my story was born. While there are not receptors or lobes in the brain that are individually responsible for being a genius, the interaction of our brain's networks are totally necessary for being a genius and spur the innovations geniuses are known for. In fact, neuroscientists from around the world have started to use magnetic resonance imaging, MRI scans, to predict the creativity margin of an individual. By monitoring the brains of people doing creative work and those not doing any creative work, scientists found that the brain of people doing creative work showed activity in all 3 lobes, suggesting the interplay between different networks is essential to creativity. This study further supports the idea that there is not a specific lobe responsible for being creative or being a genius. This study also shows that every genius has the same brain formations as the average person. They just use them differently. The study further suggested that creativity is more apparent in a healthy brain supplemented by experience. In fact, experience is even more important when it comes to making of a genius or generating ingenious ideas. This shows that everyone, including you, is capable of being a genius.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.